Why can't you just be normal like everyone else? There is a particular kind of loneliness that has nothing to do with being alone. It visits you in crowded rooms. It finds you mid-conversation when someone is laughing and you are genuinely trying to feel what they feel. But something inside you stands at a slight distance from all of it, watching, thinking, calculating depths that the surface simply cannot hold. You have been told in 1,000 small and large ways that this distance is a flaw, a social deficiency, a coldness, an oddness that needs to be corrected or at least hidden. But what if the distance was the point? What if what you have always called your strangeness was simply your mind refusing to be shallow? Picture this. It's a Sunday morning. You've been looking forward to it all week. The apartment is quiet. Your coffee is exactly the right temperature. And you finally have a stretch of uninterrupted hours with your own thoughts. No obligations, no performance, just you and the inside of your own head. And for a little while, it's perfect. Then the phone vibrates. Then again, a message checking in. A family call you'd forgotten about. Someone with genuine warmth, genuinely, suggesting you should get out more, that you've been distant, that you seem like you're always in your own world. And just like that, the peace collapses, not because they said anything wrong, but because the world runs on a frequency that is simply not yours. And the gap between the way your brain actually works and the way it's expected to work, that gap is the source of almost every quiet frustration you carry. That gap has a name, and once you understand it, everything you've ever been told about yourself starts to reframe. Let's say out loud what people have said about you. You're antisocial. You're a night owl who can't keep a normal schedule. You talk to yourself. You overthink everything. You're too intense, too scattered, too inside your own head. You're difficult to reach. You're a lot. Sound familiar? Here's what I want you to understand. Those labels were not the result of careful observation. They were the result of comparison. Comparison to an average. And averages, by definition, are not built to describe people who fall outside them. You were never failing to meet a standard. You were being measured with the wrong instrument. This is not a moral failing. This is not a discipline problem. This is not something you could have fixed if you just tried harder or wanted it badly enough. The brain you are carrying right now, as you're listening to this, processes reality differently than the brain those standards were designed around. Structurally, biologically, measurably differently. The failure was never yours, it was the framework's. Cognitive science has been quietly building a case for decades now. People with high cognitive complexity, brains that run faster, deeper, with more internal cross-referencing than average, consistently show a cluster of behaviors that look, from the outside, like dysfunction. But from the inside, they are adaptations. Polish psychiatrist Kazimierz Dąbrowski spent his career studying intellectually and creatively gifted individuals. What he found wasn't a list of defects, it was a framework he called overexcitability, a pattern of intensities in thought, emotion, imagination, and sensory experience that weren't pathologies. They were the signature of a more developed nervous system. More recently, psychologist Elaine Aron and decades of subsequent personality research have consistently shown that people with rich internal worlds don't need the external world as much, not because they're cold, not because something is missing, but because they are already full. There is a fundamental difference between someone who can't connect with others and someone whose brain generates enough internal complexity that it simply does not require constant external input to stay alive. You were never broken. You were running a different operating system, one that most people around you don't have access to. And here's what that actually costs, because it is not nothing. It is not just that your brain prefers solitude. It is that you feel the mismatch every single day. You feel it in conversation when you can see 3 or 4 layers beneath what's being said on the surface. And you don't know how to respond to the surface without betraying the depth, without either dumbing yourself down or making the other person uncomfortable. You feel it in your body. There's a specific kind of fatigue that follows social performance. Not normal tiredness, something more hollow, the tension in your jaw when you smile a version of yourself that doesn't quite belong to you. The strange deflation after a perfectly fine evening with people who didn't actually see you. The person sitting next to you on the bus, scrolling effortlessly through their feed, completely comfortable in their own shallow absence of inner noise, genuinely cannot feel what you feel, not because they're worse than you, but because they are not carrying what you carry. And the person who stays up until 3 a.m., not from insomnia, not from poor habits, but because the night is the only time the cognitive pressure drops enough to actually think, that person isn't broken. That person's brain has a higher metabolic cost. It burns more. It processes more. It refuses to coast. The weight of that is real. And the invisibility of it, the fact that no one can see it, makes it heavier. Now, here is where the story changes. Because everything I just described, the internal richness, the depth, the intensity, the exhaustion, it is not incidental. It is not a tax you pay for no reason. It is the mechanism. Research consistently links the specific traits I've been describing: solitary preference, non-standard sleep timing, verbal self-regulation, and habitual systemic questioning, to higher fluid intelligence and greater creative cognitive flexibility. These aren't quirks that happen to exist alongside a sharp mind. In many cases, they are how the sharp mind operates. The reason your brain prefers the night isn't laziness. Studies on chronotype and cognitive performance show that non-standard sleep timing is disproportionately common among individuals who score higher on creative and analytical tasks. The night, for your brain, is not escape. It is liberation from fragmentation, from social interruption, from the pressure to be performing a version of yourself all day long. The reason you talk to yourself isn't instability. Psychologist Gary Lupion's published research at the University of Wisconsin-Madison found that self-directed speech significantly improves performance on complex cognitive tasks. Externalizing inner dialogue is a tool, a sophisticated one. You've been using it correctly. The reason you question everything isn't arrogance. Your brain has a low tolerance for logical incoherence. It hunts for structural truth. It cannot accept a premise simply because everyone else already has. But here's what I also need to say clearly. A brain that never fully switches off also never fully rests. A mind that processes at this level carries weight that lighter processors never touch. The anxiety is not random noise. It is the output of a system that is projecting further into the future, holding more variables simultaneously, and refusing to pretend that uncertainty doesn't exist. That is a form of consciousness that most people will never experience. It is also a form of exhaustion that most people will never understand. And at some point, you got tired of explaining it, tired of just relax, tired of your overthinking it, tired of the social performance, the version of yourself you assemble before walking into a room, because the real version is too complex, too difficult to translate in real time, too easy to misread as coldness or arrogance or instability. Relationships have suffered, not because you don't care. You might care more deeply and more precisely than anyone else in the room, but depth is hard to sustain with people who are comfortable at the surface. Your silences get read as rejection. Your need for space gets called withdrawal. Your need for honesty gets called intensity. And somewhere along the way, quietly, you started to believe them. You started the internal project of becoming easier, smaller, more manageable. You started treating your own mind as the source of the problem. I want to be direct with you about this. That project will never succeed. Not because you lack discipline, not because you're not trying, but because you are attempting to compress something that was architecturally designed to expand. And the longer you run that project, the more it costs you. In energy, in identity, in the quiet grief of never feeling fully known. The mask works, but the mask is heavy, and you've been wearing it for a very long time. So, what do you actually do with this? First, stop treating your cognitive style as a bug to be patched and start treating it as architecture to be understood. Learn your actual energy budget. High-complexity brains have higher cognitive metabolic costs. Solitude is not selfishness, it is maintenance. Schedule it deliberately and protect it without apology. Second, redesign your environment before you try to redesign yourself. Productivity research on cognitively complex individuals consistently shows that environment is upstream of behavior. If your workspace is constantly fragmented, your thinking will be constantly fragmented. Audit your environment the way an engineer audits a system, ruthlessly, structurally, without sentiment. Third, build a script for the social pressure. When someone challenges your need for space, you do not owe them a psychological presentation. You are allowed to say, clearly, warmly, without guilt, I need uninterrupted time to function well, and I protect it the same way you protect your sleep. That is not a wall, that is a boundary. Those are different things. Fourth, use your verbal processing deliberately. Stop hiding the fact that you think out loud. Start using it as a tool. Voice memos, a thinking journal, a whiteboard you talk to. Your brain externalizes to organize. That is not eccentric, that is efficient. Fifth, reframe anxiety as signal, not noise. You are not anxious because something is broken. You are anxious because your brain is running genuine future modeling at scale. When it arrives, ask, what is this actually telling me to prepare for? Then think it through, on your terms, at your speed. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about giving the mind you already have a better operating environment. One last thing, and this matters. There is a difference between traits that are simply part of your cognitive architecture and genuine challenges that benefit from professional support. If your isolation has become distress rather than restoration, if the anxiety is debilitating rather than informative, if your internal world is pulling you away from a life you actually want, those are signs to seek real support. That nuance is important, and it doesn't contradict anything said here. But for most of you listening right now, the thing you needed was not a fix. It was a framework. You're not too much. You're not antisocial. You're not the person who failed to become normal. You're a mind that operates with higher internal complexity than the social environments you were placed in were designed to accommodate. The mismatch was never evidence of your inadequacy. It was evidence of a context problem, the wrong container for the size of what you carry. The strangeness the world tried to diagnose as a defect was something else entirely. It was depth, looking for somewhere to land. If this describes someone you know, someone who's been called too intense, too quiet, too weird, too much, send this to them, not as a joke. Send it because they deserve to hear that the way their mind works is not a disorder, it's a design. Share this. They need it.